The estate at Wild Duck Bay, known to the public as the Elysian, was burning. It was more than a villa, it was a monument. Julian Thorne, chairman of the Thorne Group, had commissioned it for his wife Elara. A fortress of glass and white stone perched on the cliffs overlooking the city of Meridian. It was valued at over $500 million and hailed as a modern-day castle. Tonight it was being devoured by a roaring inferno, a spectacle that brought the city to a standstill. Desperate screams echoed from within the blazing structure, their horror drowned out by the sirens of a dozen fire trucks racing from downtown. But as the first responders arrived, ready to battle the blaze, they were met with a scene of chilling absurdity. The mistress of this priceless castle, Elara Thorne, stood on the manicured lawn, a steaming cup of coffee in her hand. Serene, almost imperceptible smile played on her lips as she watched the silhouettes of people struggling for their lives against the backdrop of the inferno. As the fire chief, Captain Miller, approached her, ready to give orders, Elara simply shook her head, her voice as calm as the still night air. "Don't bother," she said, her tone gentle yet absolute. "Let it burn." "What?" Captain Miller stared, certain he had misheard. The woman before him, whose cool, breathtaking beauty was a local legend, seemed carved from ice. The towering flames danced in the reflection of her long, almond-shaped eyes, but her expression was one of profound indifference. While a $500 million estate crumbled into ash and people screamed for their lives, its owner stood by and watched the show with detached interest. Captain Miller knew this woman well. Everyone in Meridian did. Elara Thorne, wife of the revered Julian Thorne. They were the city's golden couple, a real-life fairy tale. Splashed across every magazine and news channel, their love story was the stuff of local lore. A perfect romance that people whispered about with envy and admiration. Their wedding, a $30 million affair that had eclipsed the extravagant displays of oil tycoons, had been the event of the year. The centerpiece of this celebration was Julian's gift to Elara, the Elysian, a castle built for his queen. On that day, 1,000 guests had gathered to witness the union of Julian Thorne, one of Meridian's top 10 young innovators, and heir to the Thorne family fortune, and the woman who had saved his life. Their legend was forged in tragedy. 5 years ago, a horrific multi-car pileup on the Second Ring Viaduct had claimed dozens of lives. Julian and Elara were among the victims. In the glare of news cameras, a blood-soaked, disheveled Elara had, with superhuman strength, pulled Julian's limp body from the twisted wreckage of their car. It was the dead of winter, the road slick with black ice. The crash had brought the entire viaduct to a standstill, trapping the ambulances miles away. In the live broadcast that shocked the city, Elara, having kicked off her high heels, hoisted Julian onto her back. Barefoot, she ran for miles on the frozen, glass-strewn asphalt, her fragile frame straining under his dead weight. The city watched, breathless. Citizens who witnessed the scene fell silent, moved to tears by this raw display of devotion. At the hospital, Julian's life hung by a thread. One of his kidneys was ruptured. Elara, exhausted to the point of collapse, was a match. Without a moment's hesitation, she lay down on the operating table. "This way," she had whispered to him before the surgery, her voice weak but resolute. "We will truly become one. We can never be separated." Julian, pale and dying, had clasped her hand. "Elara," he'd smiled. "I love you." They had clung to each other then, savoring the simple, profound joy of survival, their heartbeats a testament to a love that had conquered death. The city had prayed for them, anointing them as a celestial couple. Flowers flooded their hospital room. Captain Miller had been at the crash site that day. He'd seen it all with his own eyes. Elara, barefoot and bleeding, stumbling, falling and getting back up again and again. Her hands and knees scraped raw as she carried her husband for nearly 5 miles. And now here he was again. The same woman, the same life or death scenario. But the heroine of that story was gone. In her place stood this cold, detached spectator, calmly sipping her coffee while the man she once saved burned alive. Watching the figures dancing in the flames, Elara too was lost in memory. She had pursued him first. Perhaps it was fate. High school, then college, they had always been in the same orbit. Julian Thorne was a star, a brilliant, dazzling presence who commanded attention wherever he went. Elara, quiet and reserved, couldn't pinpoint the exact moment he had captured her attention. Was it during a flag-raising ceremony, his posture ramrod straight and proud? Or was it the crisp scent of his cologne as he brushed past her in a crowded hallway? She didn't know. All she knew was that, like any young woman in the first blush of love, his image had slowly, inevitably come to fill her world. Julian had noticed her too. He felt her quiet gaze on the back of his neck during assemblies, sensed her presence in the accidental encounters across campus. This strange, solitary girl was watching him. "Are you spying on me?" he'd asked one day, cornering her with a playful, knowing smirk. Her blush was more eloquent than any words could be. She said nothing, simply lowered her head and slipped past him. As time went on, their encounters grew more frequent, the line between chance and intention blurring. He started asking her new questions. "Do you want me to chase you?" he'd tease. "What's the point of stealing glances? Why don't I just pursue you instead?" Years later, whenever he brought it up, Elara would lift her chin and state proudly, "I pursued you." There was no formal confession, no grand orchestrated date. Their connection unfolded naturally, a slow, inevitable progression from acquaintance to confidant to lover. "After we graduate," he announced at their senior year commencement, grabbing the microphone with a rogue's charm, "I'm going to marry you." The entire student body erupted in cheers, his bold declaration inspiring a wave of impromptu proposals across the auditorium. On their wedding day, Julian held her hands, his voice thick with emotion. "Elara Thorne, I love you." The crowd wept. They all knew the story of the woman who had carried him barefoot through ice and snow, the woman who had given him a part of her own body to save his life. "I pursued you," Elara had replied, her own eyes misty, "and I love you to the bone. In this journey of life, we are the scenery in each other's view. Through sickness and health I will always be by your side." Then her voice dropped, a low, intense whisper that made him shiver. "But if the day ever comes that you stop loving me, I will vanish from your world completely." "Elara," he'd said, his eyes welling with tears as his grip on her hands tightened, "you gave me my life. I swear, there will never be another woman for me." The applause was thunderous. The press immortalized them. "The miracle couple forged in ice and fire, finally united," read one headline. A final perfect punctuation mark on their fairy tale romance. To Meridian, Julian and Elara Thorne were the embodiment of loyalty and love. 3 months after the wedding, Julian cheated. Elara suffered from hypoglycemia. One evening, an attack struck. The world tilted on its axis as a cold sweat slicked her skin. She collapsed to the floor, her body limp and trembling. At that moment, Julian's phone rang. He glanced at it, grabbed his jacket, and rushed out the door without a word. Alone in the vast, silent living room, Elara drifted in and out of consciousness. When the worst of it finally passed, she managed to call him. "What, low blood sugar again?" The line on his end went quiet for a beat before his voice returned, laced with an unfamiliar annoyance. "It's a minor thing, Elara, but it's such a hassle. We're adults. You need to take better care of yourself. Just keep some candy with you." The man who had once treated her with painstaking tenderness was now dismissive, impatient. Elara ended the call and curled into a ball on the cold floor. He had gone to Chloe, the poor girl he was publicly sponsoring. Julian was, above all, a businessman. The story of their heroic survival had become a priceless asset, a pillar of his public image. Riding the wave of public adoration, he had amplified his persona by adopting a disadvantaged young woman, Chloe. He arranged for her to see top doctors overseas, accompanied her to her rural hometown to fund new roads and bridges, all to the sound of firecrackers and the flash of cameras. Elara had been there too, a silent, supportive wife. She remembered Chloe kneeling on the ground, weeping with gratitude, thanking Julian for covering her university tuition, her living expenses, for everything. He had publicly promised her a job at the Thorne Group upon graduation. His parents had been immensely proud. Julian was a prodigy, using his family's capital to launch a corporate empire right out of college, earning him accolades and honors. He was obsessed with success, with amassing wealth and glory. "I don't want to offer you a gentle love born of mediocrity," he had once told Elara. "I want to give you the very best of everything in the world." And he had. $10,000 handbags, $1 million sports cars, designer clothes. She lacked for nothing. Except his time. Except his presence. Lying on the floor, Elara struggled to her feet and stumbled to the sofa. She opened her phone and saw Chloe's latest post. It was a picture of Chloe, wrapped snugly in the very jacket Julian had just grabbed on his way out. The caption read, "I hate mice." So that was it. The urgent phone call, the hasty departure. It was because Chloe, the damsel in perpetual distress, had seen a mouse. The kind of manufactured fragility that made every man want to be her knight in shining armor. Elara had thought Julian was the exception. She had been wrong. In the photo, Elara noticed the Hermes necklace glinting at Chloe's throat, the Cartier earrings. Even the clip in her hair was an exquisite, costly piece. Julian's sponsorship had clearly evolved far beyond charity. At some point, Chloe had become more important. Julian would use late-night meetings and work deadlines as an excuse to stay with Chloe, all because she had whimpered over the phone that she was lonely and scared. He would, of course, be staying at Chloe's tonight. What they were doing, what they were saying, Elara didn't want to know. A profound, soul-crushing exhaustion washed over her, drowning every other thought. This time, Julian didn't come home for over a week. He didn't even know that the morning after the mouse incident, Elara had packed a bag and gone on a solo trip to all the places they had once promised to visit together. During that time, Elara's phone was eerily silent, save for Julian's perfunctory daily texts. In a meeting, working late, business trip. When Elara returned a week later, she hung a handcrafted wind chime she'd bought by the window. Its delicate, crystalline sound filled the air whenever a breeze swept through. For 2 more days, the texts continued. On the 9th day, Julian finally returned, dark circles under his eyes. He was holding a lavishly decorated black velvet gift box. "Elara, happy birthday," he said, his voice laced with manufactured regret. "I'm sorry I've been swamped. I hope you don't mind." A faint, cloying scent of perfume clung to him. Chanel No. 5. Chloe's favorite, ever since Julian had first gifted it to her. He pulled Elara into an embrace, oblivious to the rigid coldness of her body, and pressed their foreheads together. His hand settled on her waist, drawing her in. She didn't fight, didn't react at all. She was a statue in his arms. "I love you," he whispered, nuzzling her hair. "Forever and always. I would give my life for you." In front of him, Elara opened the gift box. Inside lay a magnificent imperial green jade pendant, masterfully carved and polished, threaded through a glittering platinum chain. It was breathtakingly elegant, and worth millions. Staring at the necklace, a sharp, suffocating pain pierced Elara's heart. Julian, not sensing her reaction, continued in a syrupy tone. "It has a beautiful name. It's called the Sun and Moon for my love." "Oh," Elara replied, her voice flat. There was no joy, no surprise, just an unnerving calm. Julian frowned. "Let me put it on for you." Elara took a step back, evading his outstretched hands. "I'll go make dinner." She carried the box to the kitchen and, without a second glance, dropped it, box, necklace and all, into the trash can. The Sun and Moon for my love. She'd seen it before. 3 days ago, while she was in the Maldives, Chloe had already posted a picture of it on her social media. The location tag in the photo was a trash can. The caption read, "Thanks for the gift, but I don't like it." Something Chloe had rejected, Julian had brought home for her. From the living room, Julian watched her. His brow furrowed in thought, but his gaze never once strayed to the millions of dollars worth of jewelry he had just seen discarded like garbage. When Elara served dinner, he picked at his food, his chopsticks moving listlessly before he put them down entirely. He reached out and stroked her cheek. "This is a rather extreme reaction, don't you think?" he said, his tone turning sour. He lit a cigarette. "I'm full." As he stood to leave, his phone rang again. Chloe was in a car accident. Car accident. For a couple forged by that very tragedy, the words were a raw, exposed nerve. In his sudden panic, Julian spun around, his arm sweeping out and knocking Elara hard. She fell, her head cracking against the sharp corner of the marble coffee table. If he had bothered to look back, he would have seen the blood bloom on her forehead. But he was already gone. Fighting through a wave of dizziness and pain, Elara grabbed her coat and followed him out. By the time she reached the driveway, Julian's car was already peeling away, tires screaming against the pavement. Chloe had been hit by an electric scooter. The driver was drunk, belligerently arguing with the crowd that it didn't count as a DUI. "Ow wow," Chloe sobbed, collapsing into Julian's arms the moment he arrived. Her face was a mask of tear-streaked, pitiful fragility. Elara, stepping out of a taxi, watched the scene unfold. From the safety of Julian's embrace, Chloe's eyes flickered open and met hers, a flash of pure, triumphant provocation in them. "My stomach hurts so much," Chloe wailed. Julian knelt, gently draping his own expensive coat over her. He looked at her with such tender concern that any onlooker would have assumed they were the star-crossed lovers. "I'm taking you to the hospital," he murmured, his voice trembling. A tearing pain ripped through Elara's chest. But hadn't this been her life ever since Chloe arrived? A cycle of pain and self-healing over and over, until all that was left was numbness. A love that is not whole is not love at all. "Get out of the way," Julian roared, shoving through the crowd as he carried Chloe to his car and sped off. Chloe had a miscarriage. The child was Julian's. When Elara heard the news, a faint ripple disturbed the placid surface of her heart, but it was not surprise. In the hospital room, Julian's face was a thundercloud. He gripped the jade ring on his thumb so tightly that his nail dug into his own skin. "Julian, I'm so sorry," Chloe whispered, her face pale and tear-stained. "I've caused so much trouble for you both. You should go back." Elara must be furious. She lowered her voice, a conspiratorial intimacy in her tone. "That night, after we'd been drinking, let's just pretend it never happened. But," she added, her eyes glinting, "when you let go like that, you're so intoxicating." Julian's face softened. What right does she have to be angry? I give her a life of luxury, a life other women would kill for. He hesitated, his composure cracking. "But the baby?" He trailed off, suddenly at a loss. "I was going to surprise you," Chloe cried. "I know how much you wanted a daughter. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have kept it." Her performance was flawless, but as she spoke, her gaze drifted past him, through the slightly ajar door, to where Elara stood in the hallway. Chloe lifted her chin, a victorious swan preening for its audience. The act was over. Her hand, resting casually on her stomach, was a declaration of war. But Elara's face remained a mask of placid indifference. Seeing no reaction, a flicker of confusion crossed Chloe's face. Chloe stayed in the hospital for a month. Julian stayed with her for a month. He only came home on rare nights to grab fresh clothes, his body heavy with fatigue. "Chloe is very weak," he said one night, his tone casual. "You make excellent chicken soup." Elara, her back to him, whispered a single word into her pillow. "Fine." To his surprise, she got out of bed and went to the kitchen. "You weren't asleep?" he asked, standing several feet away in the living room, his gaze complicated. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. "Your reaction to all this is getting out of hand," he finally said, lighting a cigarette, his face obscured by the smoke. "I don't like it. You know this is all for show, for my public image. If you really hate it, I'll tell her to leave." Elara turned to face him. "Don't bother." She shook her head. "The soup will be ready by 6. You can pick it up yourself. I'm going to bed." Her quiet compliance left him brooding for a long time. He didn't return for days. The next afternoon, after Elara had finished a long call with her lawyer, discussing the fine points of a divorce, the front door burst open. Julian strode in, his face grim. "Wash this jacket for me," he said, tossing it on a chair. "And I'm hungry. Make me something to eat. You haven't cleaned this house in weeks. I hate sloppiness." He rattled off his demands without once looking at her. "And another thing. Chloe got sick after drinking your soup this morning. Can you stop being so childish? Did you put something in it?" His voice had risen to an accusatory growl. It was clear he had returned not out of concern, but to wage war. Just then his phone rang. It was Chloe. "Julian, darling, could you please put me on speaker?" she asked, her voice small and timid. He did as she asked. "Elara, I'm so sorry." Chloe's voice, thick with fake tears, filled the room. "The soup had nothing to do with it. Julian heard I was sick and rushed over here. He must be blaming you now. It's just my weak constitution. Julian, please don't be angry with her." Hearing Chloe's magnanimous defense, Julian's expression softened. "You're not even as mature as she is," he grumbled at Elara before hanging up. Elara simply frowned. The little viper. It was a shame she no longer had the energy to even despise her. She finished applying her makeup, changed into a stylish dress, and walked to the door. "Where are you going?" Julian demanded, finally looking at her. "I said I was hungry. And the house is a mess." "I have plans," Elara said, opening the door. "Wait. My birthday is in a few days." The door clicked shut behind her before he could finish. Elara met her lawyer at a quiet restaurant. "I don't need anything from him." A clean break is all I want. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. I recognize you, Mrs. Thorne. The Elysian, the car accident. Your story is famous. He saw the look on her face and wisely fell silent, pushing the prepared divorce agreement across the table. That night, Elara received a text from Chloe. Chloe, Elara. I'm sure you heard what Julian and I talked about in the hospital. The baby was his. That night we were both drunk. He was so strong. I'm sorry I couldn't resist. I don't want this to affect your marriage. He told me he loved me as he tore my dress. She embellished the story with lurid details, describing a passion Julian hadn't shown Elara in years. After a long pause, Elara typed a single word. Elara. Oh. Chloe stared at her phone, stunned. This was not the reaction of a betrayed wife. Frustrated, she unleashed a torrent of texts, detailing every secret meeting, every shopping trip, every late-night rendezvous. The other end remained silent. Finally, when Chloe was about to give up, a short reply came through. Elara. I wish you both the best. On the night of Julian's birthday, he arrived at the Elysian with Chloe on his arm. Julian, maybe I should go, Chloe said, feigning hesitation at the door. What if Elara gets angry? It's just a birthday, he soothed. A birthday without you would be meaningless. They stepped inside. The house was dark and silent. When Julian switched on the lights, he froze. On the coffee table lay a single document. A divorce agreement. He had been so preoccupied with Chloe, he had no idea when it had appeared. Oh, what a beautiful wind chime, Chloe exclaimed, her eyes darting from the papers to the window. It looks like it's from the Maldives. I'm so jealous you two got to travel there. She was chattering, trying to diffuse the tension, but a triumphant smirk played on her lips. A muscle twitched in Julian's jaw. He looked from the wind chime to the divorce papers and, with a roar of frustration, smashed the birthday cake he was holding onto the floor. This is ridiculous, he bellowed. She thinks she can just divorce me? It was only then that he truly noticed what was missing. Her clothes, her toiletries, her books. Every trace of Elara's existence had been erased from their home. I'm so sorry, Julian, Chloe whimpered, tears already welling. It's my fault. I made her unhappy. A large hand rested on her shoulder. For Chloe, Julian's patience was infinite. He snatched the divorce papers, ripped them to shreds, and threw them in the trash. She's just throwing a tantrum. Pay it no mind. Chloe performed a seductive dance for him, her lithe body moving with an ethereal grace. It was her specially prepared birthday gift. The earlier anger forgotten, Julian watched. With a smile. As the dance ended, she sank onto his lap, her lips finding his. He responded fiercely, then pulled back as if shocked. Being here in this house with her felt wrong. But Chloe was relentless, her hands working at his clothes, until his last defense crumbled. Afterward, he sent her home. Sitting alone in his car, he straightened his rumpled collar and dialed Elara's number again and again. It went straight to voicemail. He had no idea that Elara was already miles away, phone off, sleeping soundly in a friend's apartment. 3 days later, Julian found her. He showed up at her friend's doorstep, looking haggard and travel-worn. What is this nonsense? He demanded, blocking the doorway. He held up an expensive-looking box. Inside was a pair of diamond earrings. I'm sorry, I've been neglecting you. Is it because of the soup? Or is this about Chloe? Elara took the box, stared at the glittering earrings for a moment, and then let them drop to the floor where they shattered. They're ugly. I don't like them. Julian's face hardened. You're taking this too far. He reached for her. She stepped back. I'm not throwing a tantrum. I'm not angry. The fairy tale couple, the perfect romance. Can't it just end? Can't we just get a divorce? Julian, when have I ever joked about leaving you? I gave you a kidney. I can afford to lose it. You don't need to pay me back. An unfamiliar panic seized him. The woman before him was a stranger. Elara, I'm sorry. He backtracked, his voice softening. I went too far. Let's go home. I've canceled all my meetings. I booked a table at our favorite restaurant. She said nothing, simply walked around him and left with her friend. He waited outside her friend's building for 3 days. On the 4th day, a frantic call from Chloe pulled him away. Elara used the opportunity to move again. You can't hide from a man like that, her friend advised her before she left. The only way to be free is to make him give up. You have to make him despair. Elara returned to Meridian. Julian's sudden change in attitude alerted Chloe. A sense of crisis unlike anything she had ever felt before washed over her. She clung to him, a constant, cloying presence. Julian grew increasingly impatient. "Julian, you should go find Elara," Chloe would say, mastering her role as the self-sacrificing martyr. "I overstepped. I promise I'll know my place from now on." Her manipulations always worked. He would soften, stay the night, and then leave in a panic the next morning. He knew Elara's location at all times. He abandoned his business, spending his days and nights parked outside her new apartment building, the memory of his own confident proclamations, "She'll never leave me," now a source of burning shame. "Elara, can we please just meet?" he pleaded over the phone. "If you come back, I'll make Chloe disappear from our lives forever." "We're not children anymore, Julian," she replied, a humorless laugh in her voice. "Go to your Chloe. She is your sun and moon now. You once told me your love was threefold. The sun, the moon, and me. The sun for the day, the moon for the night, and me forever and ever. The sun and moon are irreplaceable, but I can be replaced. There will always be a new dawn and a new dusk, just not with me." After a long silence, his voice came back, raw and broken. "I was wrong." It was the first time he had ever admitted it. Elara hung up. Through a crack in the curtains, she could see his desolate figure slumped in his car below. For 3 months Julian wasted away. He neglected his company, spent his nights drunk, and ignored Chloe completely. One day, he showed up at Elara's door with Chloe in tow. She was the picture of contrition. "Elara, it's all my fault," Chloe began. "If you come back to him, I'll disappear forever. Julian hasn't been eating or sleeping. It breaks my heart to see him like this." Julian looked from Chloe to Elara, his patience finally snapping. "Elara, whatever game you're playing, whatever point you're trying to make, it's over. Don't push me." A slow, chilling smile spread across Elara's face. She stepped forward and slapped Chloe hard. The sound cracked in the silent hallway. Chloe stared, stunned, tears welling in her eyes. Before she could react, Elara slapped her again. And again. "In front of me?" Elara asked, her voice dangerously low. "Do you really need to keep up the act?" She glanced at the blood trickling from Chloe's lip, then turned her gaze to Julian. "Well? Aren't you going to get angry?" To Chloe's astonishment, Julian stood perfectly still. "She upset you," he said, his voice flat. "She deserved it." Elara let out a cold laugh. "Get out." She looked directly at Julian, her eyes like chips of flint. "You know me, Julian. Once I've made up my mind, nothing can change it. Not even you." His eyes were bloodshot. "Chloe," he snarled, whirling on her. "What did you say to her?" Back at his own apartment, Julian found their text history. He saw Chloe's poison, her carefully crafted lies and manipulations. "You bitch!" he roared, striking Chloe so hard she crumpled to the floor. He yanked her up by her chin, his voice a venomous whisper. "I told you you could be with me, but you were not to play games. You should never have tried to be clever with me." He smashed everything in the room before storming out. He drove to Elara's and kicked open the door. Done with words, he swept her into his arms and carried her, struggling and fighting, down the stairs. In the struggle, Elara smashed her phone against his head, again and again, not caring that he was bleeding. He finally stumbled, setting her down. And then, to her utter shock, Julian Thorne, the proud, indomitable titan of industry, fell to his knees on the pavement, his face streaked with blood and tears. "Wife," he sobbed, the word torn from his throat. "Let's go home." He was broken. After 3 months he finally understood. This was never about a lover's quarrel. The moment she had walked out that door, it had been over. The same woman who loved so fiercely could also leave with absolute finality. "It's over between us, Julian," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "We are strangers now. These words mean nothing." She shook her head. "I'm leaving. A piece of paper can't hold me here. Don't come looking for me again. Chloe is your forever now." He was blocked on all her accounts. The messages he sent vanished into the void. The calls never went through. After a month of silence from his end, Elara finally booked a flight to the coast. She would buy a small guest house and live out her days in peace. She knew the only way she could truly disappear was if he finally gave up. The day before her flight, a call came from an unknown number. It was Julian. "Elara," he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "It was all Chloe's fault. I'm sorry. Don't you love me at all anymore? I don't know how to live without you. I'm asking you one last time. Do you not love me? His voice was trembling. Elara didn't hesitate. No, she said simply. I don't. And because you know me so well, you should understand that the moment I put those divorce papers on the table, the love was already gone. Remember what I told you at our wedding? When I love you, I can give you my life. When I don't, I can leave just as easily. I told you never to lie to me. No, I don't believe you, he screamed. What if I die? A faint smile touched her lips. What does your life or death have to do with me? He fell silent. Then his voice returned, chillingly calm. Elara, come to our home. See me one last time. Just once. After today, I swear I will never bother you again. She hesitated, then agreed. When Elara arrived at the Elysian, Julian and a terrified Chloe were standing on the second-floor balcony. I told you I could make her disappear from our lives forever. Julian yelled down to her, his face a mask of madness. I don't believe you don't love me anymore. I don't believe you'd watch me die in front of you. He began to douse the floors, the walls, the priceless furniture with gasoline. Chloe, understanding his intent, shrieked and tried to run, but he grabbed her, holding her fast. This is all because of you, you bitch, he screamed at Chloe. He flicked open a lighter. The curtains ignited, and in an instant, the entire floor was engulfed in a tidal wave of fire. Chloe's screams were terrifying, her silhouette a frantic, thrashing shape in the flames. Below on the lawn, Elara took a sip of the coffee she had bought on the way. I'll use my life to prove I love you, his actions screamed. And I'll use my life to prove you still love me. He stood in the heart of the fire, his eyes locked on her. In the cool, placid depths of her gaze, he found only one thing. Nothing. Elara, help me. Chloe begged, her voice a desperate shriek. I'm sorry. I don't want to die. The fire chief arrived to find Elara blocking his path. Don't bother, she repeated, her voice steady. Let it burn. From behind the wall of fire, a broken, self-mocking smile spread across Julian's face. He had gambled. And he had lost. Elara watched for another moment, then turned and walked away without a backward glance. The next morning, she boarded her flight as planned, leaving the city of Meridian behind for a new life by the sea. Weeks later, her friend called with an update. Julian and Chloe had been rescued, but Chloe's face and body were severely burned. She was permanently disfigured. Julian's fate was just as grim. He suffered second-degree burns over much of his body, and upon his release from the hospital, he was arrested for arson. He was facing a long prison sentence. The Thorne Group stock had plummeted, its reputation in ruins. Elara felt nothing. She knew in his own twisted way, Julian had loved her until the very end. But she no longer loved him. Her love was threefold: the sun, the moon, and him. The sun for the day, the moon for the night, him forever and ever. But in this world, the sun and moon are constant. Forever and ever is not.